Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ivana. I love books. We're gonna talk about all of the books that I read in May. So I read a grand total of 8 books in May, and we're gonna look at them instead of through categories as we normally do. I thought it would be fun to compare how I felt about them versus how Goodreads reviewers felt about them on average. So we're gonna be looking at the books from lowest rated on Goodreads to highest rated on Goodreads. Goodreads is owned by Amazon, and I think it is a shame that some books are overlooked because they have poor ratings for whatever reason. I just thought it would be an interesting experiment to see how the general public feels about these books versus how I feel about them. There are like a few surprises. There used to be a time in like 2012 where I would not read books if they had lower than a 4.0 rating on Goodreads, and I feel like most of these books are in the 3 point somethings, which is really interesting to me. And then some books that don't deserve a higher rating have a really high rating. I also don't rate books myself. I do have like 5-star books because they're books that are my favorites, but for the most part I don't rate books because I find it reductive. But alas, here we are. So let's get started. The lowest rated book I read this past month, coming in at an average rating of 3.19 out of 5 based on 28,000 reviewers, is Monica Heisey's Really Good Actually. I listened to this on Scribd because Julia Whalen narrated it. I also thought that the cover was beautiful and it just really interested me. I needed something to listen to while I clean my house, and this one delivered. I thought it was laugh out loud hilarious. It is about a woman, I believe in her mid to late 20s, who is getting a divorce. And it's not that anything big happens, it's just a falling out that she had with her ex-husband. And the main character's name is Maggie, and she is really unlikable but also very relatable. I don't know what that says about me. There are so many really good one-liners. I kind of wish I read the book physically because it was just so funny. It really reminded me of Bridget Jones' Diary, which I loved as a teenager, the movie as well. I'm like so bad at retelling stories, but one thing that I remember was her being like, damn, it sucks that I can't use pictures from my wedding where I looked really good on my dating profiles because I'm wearing a wedding dress and everybody else gets to use their pictures from my wedding. It's almost like weddings are really expensive Tinder photo shoots. I just thought that was really funny and true. The book was just really vibey, really funny, also really sad, like, and depressing in some parts. She does seek out therapy, so you do get to like hear her therapy sessions, but always with humor infused in it. And she relies a lot on her friends, and she is a shitty friend sometimes. So there is like a cast of characters. It was just a really good time. I don't understand why it has such low ratings. I do feel like maybe it is because the narrator is so unlikable, but I also think that's a sign of good writing that you're able to like write someone so human. I highly recommend this to anyone unless you're like super miserable and you don't want to hear about somebody else being super miserable. Me personally, sometimes I like to hear about other people's miseries when I'm not feeling very good, but everybody is their own person. The second book on this list is Esther Yi's YN, and it has 1,200 ratings on Goodreads, and its average rating is a 3.2 out of 5 stars. This book has a gorgeous cover. I feel like all of Astor House books have really gorgeous covers, and I end up not loving most of the Astor House books that I've read, but I just remember like loving their covers. This one I actually liked. It's about a Korean American woman living in Berlin. The whole book feels like a fever dream, and I audiobooked it, so I was kind of in a haze and a daze listening to it. This is what I like to call my Tetris Effect audiobook because I have this new thing where before bed to relax, I will play Tetris Effect on my Switch and listen to an audiobook. So I feel like I lost part of it, but essentially it's about a woman in her 20s who becomes obsessed with a K-pop boy band member named Moon, and she follows him around. And YN stands for your name in like fan fiction. I've never gotten into fan fiction, though I understand the appeal. This book was like fun, it was philosophical. People describe it as Kafka-esque. It goes back and forth between real life and fan fiction, so you kind of don't know what's real and what isn't real, and I love books like that. It's an exploration of fandom, and I loved Monica's review on this. Monica from Dog-Eared Musings, I'll link her downstairs. That was what intrigued me and what motivated me to pick it up sooner, and I thought it was a solid read. The third lowest rated book I read was SKIM by Mariko Tamaki and Jillian Tamaki. This book was published in 2008. It follows SKIM, a chubby, Wiccan, quirky girl. This is set in the 90s and she's in high school and there is a suicide at her school. One of the football players commits suicide and it's basically what happens after. It follows her own struggles with suicidal ideation and depression as well as other girls at the school. This is also queer. She falls in love, let's say, with the wrong person. I don't want to say more than that because I don't want to spoil too much of it. This book I took to the park with me on a beautiful, gorgeous day. We haven't had a lot of those lately. It's super cloudy today. And honestly, it was the only book I brought, but I would have DNF'd in the middle because it is like before its time. It's like awesome that this was published in 2008 and it tackles queerness and identity and coming of age. I want to say more, but I don't want to spoil, so if anyone wants to chat about this, let me know. There were just some things that didn't sit right with me in terms of representation and queerness, but also we shouldn't police what people can and can't publish when it comes to people in marginalized communities, so maybe I'm just being judgmental and I need to stop. The art is so freaking beautiful. I love Jillian Tamaki's drawings. I also read this one summer by this duo, so I didn't love the storyline, but it also wasn't like terrible. So this next book has 4,800 reviews on Goodreads and it has a average rating of 3.8, and it's My Last Innocent Year by Alpert Florin. I talked about this book in my Puerto Rico vlog, so if you want a more in-depth review, check it out. This book is set in 1998. It tackles consent. It follows a girl who is raped at the start of the book. It's her senior year. She wants to be a writer. There's a lot of questions about consent, what it takes to be a writer, what is good writing. She actually ends up having an affair with a married college adjunct professor, and his lines were really great. It tackles domestic violence and it's just a moody book that's really angsty, and I'm really digging campus novels, so I want to maybe read a few more over the summer. Okay, so this next book is a new favorite, and I feel so cliche saying it. It has over 1 million reviews on Goodreads and an average rating of 3.81 out of 5 stars, and it is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I feel like it was fate that I was meant to pick this up. I went with my friend to an indie bookstore, the Harvard bookstore in Cambridge, Massachusetts, on Indie Bookstore Day, and I found the UK version of this book among their used books. And I wanted to order this one online because I love this cover. I like want to get this tattooed because I love it so much. I'm not sure what can be said about this book that hasn't been said before. I don't know what took me so long to read it. I watched the Hulu adaptation of this show and I was obsessed over quarantine. I'm pretty sure I follow Connell's Chain on Instagram. I love the angst in this book and how true it feels. Like it just... Let me back up. So it follows Marianne and Connell, 2 Irish teens, I believe their senior year of high school, and it follows them from their senior year of high school, I believe, to the end of their college career, or maybe beyond. It's been a while. And you get to see them grow as friends and then as lovers or something more. I just love coming of age stories that feel realistic. I love that the first line of this book captures like the essence of Marianne and Connell's relationship. I did not come up with that. I watched a TikTok. I don't know where it is. I tried to find it. I can't find it. But the first line is, Marianne answers the door when Connell rings the bell. Genius. I have read one other book by Sally Rooney, Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I really liked it as well, so I want to check out her other book. This book tackles toxic masculinity, class dynamics. Connell is actually the son of the housekeeper in Marianne's house. Marianne is wealthy. In high school, Marianne is just an outcast. She's really smart. She's really good at school, but people don't like her. She's very cold, or she comes off as cold, whereas Connell is like super popular, and somehow they get together. Connell is also really good at school, but he is also a jock and he is really popular, and so when he and Marianne get together, he's like, nobody can know about us, and so you see like there's a lot of shame there. So they have a falling out, or like they have their ups and downs, and then when they do go to college, they end up going to the same college because they're both really smart, and their roles are reversed. Marianne is more popular, she's in her element, whereas Connell feels really out of place. and is dealing with depression. And I know it sounds like a soap opera, or it sounds like, why should I care about teens or like people in the early 20s or whatever? But I swear it is so good. It is so tender. It is so real. It just like tugs at your heartstrings and it's so beautiful. I've seen people comment like, oh, like why would anybody like Connell? He's such a D-bag. Like, it's like there's so much growth, and I know that some people are not fans of the miscommunication trope, but I just think it's very real. I think people do have a lot of miscommunication in their lives. People say a lot of dumb shit when they're young, and they should be able to redeem themselves and grow. I just love them so much. I love both Marianne and Connell, and my favorite character by far was Connell's mom, Lorraine. Like, she put him in his place. She knows what's up. She's awesome. And oh, well, another thing, I didn't notice or care that there were no quotation marks in the dialogue here. I thought it was pretty clear who said what. And yeah, this made me restart the miniseries, and I can't wait to jump back in it again because it's just so well done. Like, do yourself a favor if you haven't watched it, watch it. But I also tell people, like, watch it by yourself with the door closed. I don't know why. But yeah, new favorite. So we're down to the top 3 rated books on Goodreads. So the third highest rated book on Goodreads that I read this month had 1,000 ratings and an average rating of 3.89 stars out of 5, and it is Couplets by Maggie Millner. I also reviewed this in my blog, and I think I forgot to say that it is a novel in verse, which is wild. Maybe I did say it, but I don't think I did. And it's about falling in love. So it follows a woman who leaves her boyfriend for a woman, and it captures falling in love and leaving a relationship. It's sexy, it's smart. It talks about the writing process because she herself is a writer. It gets angsty real quick. It's fast, and I think it's like on purpose. Like, it's just very strong emotions very quickly. And it's all about feeling your feelings. If you're ever in the mood for something quick and emotional, I feel like this would be a good one to read. And I also found it really, really relatable. I want to keep this short because I already talked about it. I enjoyed this one. So the second highest rated book only has 282 reviews on Goodreads. It has an average of 4.06 stars out of 5. And honestly, these are probably reviews from the author's friend because I despise this book. And it was The BOBCAT by Katherine Forbes Riley. Now, how did I find out about this book? I actually asked my friends on Instagram after I finished Normal People for recommendations for books like Normal People, books that are angsty and just like very emotional. One of the recommendations was Couplets, and this was another one. And then I checked out a bunch of other books. I want to kind of make a vlog about it. I just was in the mood for angst. This book is atmospheric. I started reading it and I was like, oh, this is super overwritten. Maybe I'll read the first lines. Okay, so before I read the first lines, I just want to say I love books set in New England that are atmospheric. I like books that talk about adventure. I like books that are emotional. I like books that are short. This checked so many boxes, but it was overwritten from the start, so I should have known better. It starts out, physically the fog signaled only the tail end of a long Vermont winter, but nature assumed a kind of sentience, given space. So it pillowed against Laura Lee's window as a soft asylum wall and leaked its internal fluids on the sills and acted as a deranged refractor on the view, magnifying the crags and pores down her cottage's stone walls into dizzying cliffs, while drowning the yard and forest uniform great particulate. Yeah, I don't know. So this book is about a girl who has recently experienced a rape. She transfers to a school in a remote area in Vermont. The way that she pays her rent to her landlord is she watches her like 2-year-old son and takes him out on like wilderness adventures outside. And one day they run into a bobcat, and there's a man that's been like following it, and he's just really mysterious. She calls him the hiker like throughout, and I feel like it sounds like my kind of book, but it was just so poorly written. The amount of times that I read that the hiker's nostrils flared, and the amount of times that she mentioned like a cliched, very obvious artist, because the main character Laura Lee is a visual artist. It just was really on the nose in so many ways. And then the ending turned into like sciencey experimental stuff, which again sounds cool, but it's not. It was really terrible. The only reason I finished this book was because I was halfway through it when I was like, wow, this sucks. Like, why did it take me so long to realize? And maybe it was because it did have some redeeming factors at the beginning, but then it just like kept becoming repetitive and terrible. And I found it on audio. It became my Tetris Effect audiobook, and so I finished it that way. I think I listened at like 3 times speed because I was like, this is gonna count as a book for the month, which I don't recommend doing. But yeah, I really didn't like it. It read like a $2 Kindle book that was self-published. I know that sounds harsh because I do like some books that are self-published, but this one was not it. Definitely don't recommend. Don't know why it has such a high rating. And the last book I read that has the highest rating on Goodreads is popular and you should believe the hype, and it is YELLOWFACE by R.F. Kuang. I have had this book for way too long. I need to return it to the library today, and that's why I'm making the video. So far it has almost 26,000 reviews on Goodreads and the average rating is a 4.08. This was so fun. I also talked about this in my Puerto Rico vlog. It is about a white woman who steals her former classmate's book manuscript and publishes it as her own under an ethnically ambiguous name. The book is about Chinese workers during World War I. This book is fun, it's deranged. It tackles cultural appropriation as well as taking from your own life when you write. Friendship, jealousy, how awful the publishing industry is to authors of color or authors from marginalized communities, and how they're only allowed to tell one kind of story. A lot of people comment that this is very on the nose and very online and might not age well. I think it's really good. I think it captures like this moment in time. People say that it lacks nuance, and I think that to a certain point it does. Like, it's supposed to be funny and on the nose, but I do think that there are some nuances because the original author of the book that was stolen isn't like a one-dimensional character. Like, you get to see the story behind their friendship. I don't want to give too much away, but this is so readable, and I'm really curious about the conversations that it will continue to spark about the publishing industry and about writing in general. And I can't wait for my friends to read it so I can talk about it with them. So yeah, that's it. I did it. It took me so long to sit down and film this video. I'm so happy that it's done. I'm really excited for the summer, and I'm excited to hopefully film more videos and vlogs and things like that because I will have more time. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite May reads were, or if you have any recommendations for me based on the books that I've read, or if you just want to say hi. Have a happy rest of the spring. Peace.